We are live.
Thank you. I'll call to order this regular council meeting of December 10th with adoption of the agenda. Councillor Devlin, seconded by Councillor Stapernhurst. All in favor? Adoption of the minutes from the regular council meeting of November 27th. Councillor Devlin, seconded by Councillor Stapernhurst. All in favor? Is there any business arising from these minutes? I see none. I'm going to go to announcements from the mayor. So this is our last council meeting before the winter break. City Hall will be closed December 23rd and reopening January 6th. With the postal strike going on, business license and commercial utility bills may be delayed. You can reach out to the finance team either by phone at 250-837-2161 or email finance@revelstoke.ca to avoid late payments before January 31st. CBT Ready grants open up on January 6th for applications. And we are now getting into the snow removal season, so just make sure that you are observing all of the parking restrictions so you don't accidentally get towed, and just a reminder to not pile your snow in the windrows in the middle of the roadways. We'll now move on to delegations and presentations. I see Leanne Kelly. Oh,
sorry, I just have a question from your announcement. So regarding the business licenses, I can't remember the other item.
Commercial utilities.
The commercial utilities.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to have a little bit more clarity rather than having everybody phone finance with those questions. So with so for example, with the business license, are we enforcing the time frames as always? And do those businesses need to be proactive, or because of mail will there be a delay in collections?
I'll go over to Ms. Moore.
Through the chair. So the deadline is currently still set for January 31st for both business license and Q1 commercial utilities. The business license deadline has changed this year from the beginning of January to January 31st. With that being said, if anyone who has a commercial utility bill or a business license, we have it ready to go at City Hall for pickup. You can come in and pay as well, or you can email in and we can email it to you. At the moment, we have not considered changing the deadline, depending on how long the strike lasts.
Just a follow-up question through the mayor. I think you can pay online before, so like businesses licenses, could you still pay online and it'll get processed, or do you need to come into City Hall?
Through the chair, you can pay online. However, you do need the correct account number to reference. Otherwise, the city will not know where to apply your payment.
Okay, and I'm trying to actually stop some phone calls. So if that's the case, would that be the same account as the previous years for those that paid in previous years for the business license, or will it be a different account? Or maybe we don't know.
Through the chair, I believe it would be the same account.
Okay.
Potentially with a new year reference of 2025.
Thank you, Mayor Lucio. Hopefully that saved a few phone calls.
Thank you, Palmer, for those clarifications. We'll move on to delegations and presentations. We have Leanne Kelly online presenting for the Special Olympics.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I will just share my screen. I do have a quick presentation. Okay, perfect. Hopefully everyone can see my presentation. Thumbs up. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So welcome everybody. Apologies, I just have to pull up my notes here. Oops. Okay, I'll just wing it. It's all good. So thank you so much. My name is Leanne Kelly, and I am the staff person for Special Olympics BC, specifically for the Okanagan region, which includes a bit of a diamond, including Revelstoke. So from Clearwater to Merritt to Osoyoos to Revelstoke is my little diamond section area. I have been a staff member for about 6 years, and I am trying to kind of spread awareness about Special Olympics in each community as best as possible. I was going to do this interactive thing, but in the essence of time, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, as I'm sure you have quite a lot of things to chat about. Oops. For a show of hands, how many of you have heard of Special Olympics before? Awesome. Okay, sweet. That's awesome. So as you may already know, Special Olympics is a worldwide organization that provides sport training and competition for individuals with an intellectual disability. We are different from the Olympics, which is meant for neurotypical individuals, and the Paralympics, which is meant for people with a physical disability. In addition to that, we don't happen just once every 4 years. We actually run consistently throughout each year. Specifically from September to June of each year, similar to a school year. We are a volunteer-based organization. So with the exception of myself and some other staff members, all of our committee members and coaches are volunteers. Some super fun facts about Special Olympics. We were established in British Columbia in 1980. We have 55 communities who are running programs across BC, which has actually grown this year. It was 53 last year, and we've grown a couple communities, which is really cool. Many athletes who get involved with Special Olympics end up involved throughout their entire life, which is really awesome to see them getting that physical activity and health that they need. Approximately 120 million people, or 3% of the world's population, have an intellectual disability. I've also included some really fun gender and age differences. So we have athletes who are anywhere from 2 years old all the way up to 92. There is no limit to how old they can be to participate. We do have an eligibility criteria. An individual is considered to have an intellectual disability if they have all 3 of the following criteria. So a IQ of below 75, they have significant limitations existing in 2 or more adaptive skill areas, and the condition generally manifests itself before the age of 18. So this would be something for people who have Down syndrome, autism spectrum disorder, who also have fetal alcohol syndrome. There's a tons of different possibilities there. We offer 18 different sports. They're all listed here, and they go between summer and winter sports. Some of our summer sports are offered through the winter, just so they have a bit of a longer season, such as basketball, as well as swimming, whereas other winter sports are very snow dependent. Many of our athletes compete in multiple summer and/or winter sports. In addition to that, we also have youth programs called Active Start and Fundamentals, which are meant for kids 2 to 6 and 7 to 11 to work on basic fundamental movement skills and then moving into more additional sport-specific skills before they get into our sport programs. We also have something called Club Fit, which is basically like a fitness program for athletes to participate in amongst their peers using body weight exercises. And in addition, we also have health initiatives, which I will get to in a little bit. We are different than the Olympics and Paralympics, but we do also have a competition cycle. So alongside our year-round sport programs, we have competition cycles that go through local, provincial, national, and international games. So currently where we're at is this past March, we had the National Winter Games in Calgary, and this past summer, we had a regional summer qualifiers. So for this sports season, we have athletes who are training for the Provincial Summer Games in July of 2025, and athletes who have qualified to go to the World Winter Games in Turin, Italy in March of 2025, which is very exciting. In 2026, our winter competition cycle will reset and go back to local competition, whereas our summer will continue on until 2027 before it'll reset in 2028. We also have school sport opportunities. This is something we are also trying to bring forward into different communities, as it only is run in the Lower Mainland and the island currently. So our school sports program is a program that works with schools and school districts around the province to build inclusive schools through sport. We offer free ready-made programming, including lesson plans and tips, and in some cases, equipment to make it easy to implement these programs. It's a way for students with intellectual disabilities to get some physical activity in school, while also getting an opportunity to interact with their peers in a more physical activity setting, and in some cases represent their school, which is really fun for them. Health initiatives. I also had a fun little Menti thing, but again, in the essence of time, I'll just pass through there. So some really wild, interesting health facts. So globally, on average, on a team of 10 Special Olympics athletes, 4 will have untreated tooth decay, 1 needs an urgent referral to a dentist, 3 will fail a hearing test, 2 may have low bone density, even though they look healthy, 4 need eyeglasses, 2 have some kind of eye disease, such as glaucoma, et cetera, et cetera. The reason that we chat about this is because people with intellectual disabilities are more likely to have different health outcomes than their neurotypical person that they see on the street. So we like to highlight kind of the health things that we are doing amongst the physical activity side, just because making sure that athletes get to live a long, healthy life is very important for us as an organization. So with that, we offer something really cool called Healthy Athlete Screenings, or in abbreviations HAS. And basically, we run several of these stations. So Fit Feet, Fun Fitness, Health Promotion, Healthy Hearing, MedFest, Opening Eyes, Special Smiles, and Strong Minds. As many of these sessions as we can, and basically they get to go and see doctors or dental hygienists and get things looked at in a safe environment that makes them feel comfortable, because a lot of times our athletes may be nonverbal or not sure how to communicate how they're feeling at the doctor. So in this case, they're able to do it amongst their peers, with their coaches, people that they know. And then that way they get a referral then to go forward to one of our inclusive health providers. So what support is SOBC Revelstoke looking for? I know I've given you a lot of information. So what we're kind of looking for is first to build awareness, to let you know that we exist in the community. Revelstoke specifically has 9 athletes that participate in their programs. They run fundraising events such as Motion Ball, as well as the Polar Plunge, which will be coming up this February. We also are looking for just kind of involvement if possible, like just being there or saying good job on social media, whatever that looks like, whatever people have capacity for. And in some cases, some of the Revelstoke athletes have had the opportunity and are having the opportunity to go on the world stage, which is really amazing. And so maybe possible recognition of those athletes, like a letter or something like that, just to give them some of that hometown support, because it's really cool when an athlete from a smaller community gets to go on that world stage. It even means more to them when they get some of that hometown support. As I've mentioned, our health initiatives and programs, if you know of someone who would be really great to help out with our health initiatives, like a great doctor or optometrist, or maybe you just know someone who might enjoy learning more about it, then please spread the word and let us know if there's anyone you think that would be great for that. Obviously, we know everyone is really busy. It's the holidays, lots is going on this time of year, but we're just looking to kind of get the word out in the community that we exist, and see if we can start doing more of those initiatives for athletes in the communities. I do have a super quick video that I hope will work. If not, it is also in the slide that I showed. Can everyone hear that?
I used to sit on the sidelines. I was never picked for teams at school.
Sorry.
I wanted to play, but as much as I loved being on a team, it was hard to keep up.
I always enjoyed going to the games, but I wish I could be out there.
I felt excluded.
I felt left out and alone. But now I can see my potential.
My potential.
My potential.
Now I have new dreams and goals to reach for.
The best place to be is on the greens.
On the court.
On the track.
At the gym.
It's all the golf course. I love coming to practice and seeing my friends and coaches.
Competing in Special Olympics has helped me show the world what I can do.
I learned to work hard to succeed at sports and in life.
Thanks to Special Olympics, I've made a lot of new friends.
I'm proud of what I've accomplished, and it has given me a lot of confidence in myself.
I hope everyone with an intellectual disability can feel strong.
Inspired.
Gifted and dignified like I do.
I am thrilled to have the opportunity to show everyone what I can do.
What I can do.
What I can do. What I can do.
What I can do.
I know that my family and people who donate are in those bleachers, and that makes me push even harder.
Special Olympics motivates me to succeed in sport and in life.
I am confident.
I am proud.
I am champion.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for listening to me. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those right now, but alternatively, my email and phone number are on here as well for future.
Thank you, Leanne, for the presentation. Your organization does great work within these communities and for these athletes that may have had barriers to enjoy sports. Knowing some of these athletes personally here in the community, what you do for them individually is great. And I like to see the progress that this organization is making. Is there any questions from counselors? See no questions. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thanks so much.
Okay, we will move on to 8A, recommendations from the Public Infrastructure Committee. I'm going to put that on the table.
Yes, that the implementation of the 30-kilometer speed limit in accordance with the Transportation Master Plan be considered.
And seconded by Councillor Stapenhurst.
I'll just speak to the motion briefly. So the topic of speed within the municipality comes up pretty regularly. And so the committee thought that we need to move this along rather than just continuing to talk about it. So there is a transportation master plan that has some dialogue. So this resolution, as it says, be considered. So there is some, I guess, some technical aspects that staff would be looking at as to exactly what that means, because there might be different expectations from different people. So, but essentially, the committee generally is in support of moving towards that direction.
Yes. And from my understanding, there would still be roads like the main thoroughfares would still remain at 50, but this was just to really address most of the residential streets and have those speed limits dropped down to 30. Is there any other questions around the table? Councilor Orlando.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Lucio. Yeah, just seeking a little bit more information on what the process would be if this recommendation was supported by council. The Transportation Master Plan, I had an opportunity to review what it says about reducing speed limits, and it talks about different classifications of the roads, arterials, collectors, and local roads as well. The recommendation is to reduce the limit except for arterials, which are on the map and essentially are Victoria Road, Forth, that kind of stuff. But I'm just wondering sort of what a timeline is, process is there any more idea on how that would work and what the road ahead would be if this was supported?
Yes, so through the mayor, maybe the other committee members might want to speak up on this as well. So I think that the intent of this motion is to formalize from council, giving staff the indicator, yes, let's move this thing along and not just let it sit there in the sidelines. So my expectation is that we would be hearing back from staff on how we go about this, and that I expect that will probably come through the Public Infrastructure Committee, but maybe some of the other committee members have some memory of this as well, or different lens, because we weren't all 100%. For example, the arterials, some actually felt that it should apply to arterials, but that's not in the Transportation Master Plan.
Yeah, I think this, having this come forward from council will then have this included in the budget deliberations because the cost with re-signing all the roads, isn't budgeted in this, new budget cycle. So this would essentially just get the wheels turning. So this could come back for 2026. Any other questions? Sorry, Councilor.
Absolutely. I was just gonna make a comment, I think we generally, in terms of the entire public, not necessarily council as a whole, have been pretty in favor and pretty vocal in favor of reducing speed limits in town. So yeah, I have no problem with kicking this forward and more kind of bumping it up on Saturday. So yeah, I'm in support of this. It's generally a positive thing, I think.
Councilor Landa?
Thank you. Yeah, just one more question of a quick follow-up was there any indication that it would be doable, for the next budget cycle? Because obviously, yeah, like signage, et cetera, would have costs to it. Is that something that staff indicated at the PIC meeting?
I don't recall, maybe.
If I may, through the chair, to answer Councilor Orlando's question, I don't recall there being any precise figure amount or a really detailed implementation as to how this was going to be implemented. The general consensus that we're looking for is to give staff the direction to move ahead at proceeding with this 30 kilometers an hour reduction. And from a safety standpoint, I don't believe there's anything more paramount in creating a safer community and creating better outcomes from those that are involved in traffic vehicle accidents, in particular when we have accidents that pertain to vehicles versus pedestrians or vehicles versus cyclists. And if you look at articles from the American Medical Journal Society, if I'm quoting that correctly, there's the outcome for those survivors from those accidents when the speed is reduced is greatly significant. So I would encourage you to support this moving forward. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Yeah, just your worship to the chair. Yeah, my questions are focused on process and procedure for the city, like what the roadmap is ahead for us. They're not expressing a view that we should or should not go forward with the process, but just seeking some more information for our knowledge as well as for the public's knowledge on what happens next. So thank you very much, Councilor Palmer, for providing.
Yeah, and I think with Director Black not being present at this meeting, we can't 100% answer those questions. But yeah, it was essentially just to get this going, because I know that the signage would have to come out of there's nothing budgeted for it, and it's not within the wayfinding signage budget.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? I'll call the question. All in favor? Perfect. We'll move on to 8B, Finance Committee. Someone will put that on the table. Sorry, Ms. Floyd.
Sorry, Worship, could you, the recommendation that came forward has a bit of a typo and the last four words should not be included. It's repeated.
Okay. Thank you. Sure.
I move that Chief Administrative Officer and Fire Chief work towards a more equitable agreement with the province related to highway calls and emergency services.
Councilor Palmer will second that. Any discussion on this one? Councilor Orlando.
Yeah, through Acting Mayor Lucio, I feel the wording can be tightened up a little bit. I did notice the 4 extra words repeated at the end there, and I see we've revised them. For my liking, I would like to see some timelines and deliverables on this. So I'm wondering if the mover would consider making additions, trying to put a timeline on it when we're going to hear back about this next and what our specific objectives and deadlines would be as part of that resolution.
Council Chair, do you want to weigh in on
Sure.
that?
I believe through the chair, this is a recommendation from the Finance Committee and not something that will be changing right now. I could be wrong.
Thank you, Councillor Terry. You could amend it at this time because council is making the recommendation. However, I'm not sure how far in advance the Director of Finance knows when it will be considered or moved forward.
Director Moore?
Through the chair, to give a little bit more clarity, I did speak with Chief DeRossi. And as part of reviewing all of the fees for the fire services and that department, it's something he will be reviewing in the near future and can report to council or the finance committee. However, we do not have a specific timeline, but something that we will be working on in 2025.
Councilor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Lucio. I think it's always good to have some sort of timeframes and some boundaries whenever possible. The fire chief is here. I'm just wondering if we could get a comment to time bounds. Like it's 6 months, 3 months, 2 days. Is there a reasonable time that we could actually put in that creates some framework for your work plan?
Through the chair, yes, I can put a little bit of background information. Annually, the province and Fire Chiefs Association and BC Wildfire Services collaborate to set the annual rates that are reimbursed rates for fire department emergency services. So one of the things that the Fire Chiefs Association has been working on continuously is to increase the rates for the highway rescue reimbursements. They're lower than what we'd like them to be. So those are reviewed annually and work with the province to try to settle those in advance of what we would call the wildfire season, because that's the most critical one. So you will see the interagency agreements rates comes out. They're usually approved in May. So we should be able to see the result of any negotiations. The Fire Chiefs Association of BC has had success with that. So we usually see the draft in April. So I would be able to report along with all other departments, city fire departments, probably in May or June.
So through the chair, perhaps the mover would be receptive by add that and perhaps and that the fire chief report back by mid 2025.
Acceptable.
Good with that?
Of course.
We'll apply that as an add mat to that.
Yeah, do that as a friendly amendment then.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilor Orlando.
Yeah, we're sure, you recommend that, that sounds great. Certainly, this is a resolution that arose during the finance committee meeting, and it's really good to have the technical information presented by the fire chief, just so we can inform our decisions. So that sounds great to me.
Councilor Carey.
If I can, through the chair, while the chief's up here, can I ask when we enter contract negotiations with CSRD for calls outside of the city limits?
When we did?
Is it an annual thing? Maybe I need some more information about this.
Order. Just clarity on contractual discussion of contractual negotiations in a non-camera session. Not sure here, just seeking clarity on whether that's advisable.
Sorry, Councillor Cherry, what was did you just want
Well, I just want a timeline.
response?
I just wanted a timeline for when those sort of things happen, as we just heard, or the exact same conversation about highway calls. So.
Can I jump in?
Yes, you can.
Through the chair, you can talk about generally any contract with any other party, you just can't talk about the details of said contract. So if you're asking about a particular contract with one of our regional partners or anyone else, you can talk about that, just not the details. General rule. Thank you.
Kind of stumped here on this one. Then.
Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, just further to that, that's not directly related to the motion on the table, so I think we should be voting on the motion on the table at this point, and maybe that's a topic for discussion at a future time. I think it is, actually.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, I'll call the question on 8B. All in favor? So we'll put the second one on the table. Councilor Devlin.
Move that an additional meeting be scheduled in February or March to discuss tax shifting examples between business classes and examples of ratios from comparable communities.
I'll second that one. Any discussion on that? Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, so that's going to be on us really soon. Do we have a date in mind? I'm not asking for that necessarily, but slightly better if there was an actual date.
Through the chair, we have presented in the council meeting report dates that will be seen later on in the agenda. There is a date of March 5th.
Any other questions? Councilor Orlando.
Acting Mayor Lucille, I was just wondering if we could get a little more information for the public from the mover about this resolution is about, sort of in layman's terms.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the Finance Committee meeting, we had a brief discussion about and a brief overview on kind of what a few of the scenarios would look like if we were to shift the business classes and ratio or the ratios of business classes from, in the example that we got was from business other to, I believe it was recreation, or there was some conversation about other classes. We decided that an in-depth conversation about it would be best done at a meeting where everyone was present, but generally we have talked about it for the last couple of years. It's come up in every budget deliberation cycle, the concept of shifting taxes, and it's never really been given a lot of attention. So we figured that perhaps a meeting where we could actually have a real conversation on what some of those shifts might look like for the business class and the sort of other classes that we would be shifting to or from. So essentially just, a conversation to have a conversation in the future. But that was kind of the gist of it.
Any other questions? I'll call a question. All in favor? Awesome. We'll move on to 9A, Planning Advisory Commission. Council Chair.
Move that Advisory Planning Commission establishment by, I'll just start again. I move that the Advisory Planning Commission establishment amendment bylaw number 2401 be adopted.
Second for that, Councilor Staples. Any questions in regards to this one? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Moving on to 9B, zoning amendment bylaw number 2403. Councilor Staples.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2403 be read a third time.
Second for that, Councilor Palmer. Any discussion on this? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor Devlin opposed. Does anyone want to put the second one on the table? Councilor Staples.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2403 be adopted.
Seconder for that one? I'll second that one. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor Devlin is opposed. Balance of council is in favor. Moving on to C, forget what number we're on, 9C, zoning amendment bylaw number 2402. Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, I'll put a motion that zoning amendment bylaw number 2402 be read a first time, and assuming that it'll be seconded, I'm just wondering if there's a staff report.
Councilor Cherry. Steph, do you have a overview for us?
Through the chair, I have an overview. There's no presentation. So I'll just do an overview of the development proposal and applications in front of you. So the first recommendation you're looking at is the zoning bylaw. There are two applications that you are looking at today. So I'm just going to go over both of them to summarize the development. So you have a zoning bylaw amendment from an R3 zone to a C23 zone. This is for 1004 4th Street. This is next to a development that council reviewed that neighboring is a 39 unit townhome development. This proposal is right off of 4th Street for a 14-unit multifamily walk-up row house development. So the units are separated vertically. You'll see in the plans there's an entrance to each unit, 7 entrances walk up, and instead of having a secondary suite for the row houses, the applicant has opted to provide a 1-bedroom unit on the market. So you'll see instead of 7 units with suites, it's 14 units and it's stacked. And the applicant had, this has gone to the Advisory Planning Commission, the rezoning, and then following the rezoning is a development permit for the form and character as the developments within the scenic corridor and multifamily development permit areas. So they did go to the Advisory Planning Commission. They're supportive of the development proposal with some suggestions for storage, which the applicant has incorporated into their plans, which is spoken to in the report. So the proposal is 14 units, 1 access to 14 parking stalls with a 15th for accessible stall for visitor parking that has a covered carport. And then there's surrounding landscaping around the development. You'll see in the plans the developer has also added variation to the roof form and the building articulation around the development to fit in with the neighboring development and neighborhood. So if council has any questions on I know the rezoning is what's being considered today, or the development permit, staff are here. The applicant is also in attendance if you have any questions. Staff do know it is going to propose as a CD zone. This zone is for the specific development proposal in front of you today, and then allows an applicant to then have a development permit considered, and then to building permit consideration. So this application is coming to you today for expediting a development that's in line with the official community plan that can have a 2025 build season. Otherwise, if this was to go forward just as a development permit in the new year under the draft zoning bylaw, as this property is designated medium density residential and it's zoned medium density, it would go under a standard medium density zone and would not require a rezoning and just would be a development permit. However, this is coming to you today with timing of the development being built on the ground.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councilor Palmer.
Generally, like as far as the development, I don't have any direct issues with the development. The CD zone, could we have staff just expound on that a little bit more? So we're trying to get away from the CD stuff, and is this why like without going to a CD, is there not any other mechanism for having this development go through? Because it seemed to me, even at the last public meeting, we're talking about the problems the CD zones created, and here we're doing the exact same thing again, so for a relatively straightforward development.
Yeah.
Through your worship, Councilor Palmer. Excellent question. You are correct. The CD zones have been the bane of our existence for some time in Revelstoke. We're hoping that once this new zoning bylaw gets through, we're not going to see nearly as many of them. This is, think of it as an interim step to expedite housing construction. When this zone, should it be adopted by council, when it goes forward under the new zoning bylaw, it would be dissolved and it would be wrapped up into what we call the residential medium density 3 zone. So it would be wrapped up into a standard zone, so it wouldn't carry forward as a comprehensive development zone. The developer proposed this as a CD zone rather than trying to carry forward one of the new zones a little bit early based on the concerns that were raised at the council table for a prior project on Simpson Street, where we had the new LD3 zone come in as the R6 zone that had raised some concerns by council. So this was the only alternative. If we're working under our current R3 zone, our medium density zone, I think that they're only entitled to about 4 units on site, if the math is correct there. So it shows that inconsistency between our official community plan and our current zoning bylaw. So really we think of this CD zone as an interim step it would be dissolved. It would not carry forward as part of the rewrite that we're hoping to bring to council for initial consideration in January 2025.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's one of those ones. Yeah, okay, I'll just accept that explanation. It's one of those things that it's kind of irritating, but is reasonable, I guess, as far as bureaucrats go. The second question I have is, has any comments from engineering? So specifically interested in the work that they're doing on multi-use paths in that area, bicycle lanes. And is there an opportunity with the development for those improvements on 4th to integrate some of those concepts within this development window?
Through Councillor Palmer, there has been work on the 4th Street Common project. And with that project, should it get through the council process, that would inform future development and any frontage improvements and upgrades that are required. So staff will certainly be looking to that, but the sooner that that project can get through the council process, the sooner we can use it to apply to developments. Now, that said, we understand that there's a lot of moving pieces happening in the city right now with so much master planning and site-specific planning being done. We would certainly be looking to work with the engineering department and the developer to follow that 4th Street Common project. And if it's kind of 90% over the finish line, then it gives the developer some direction as well. And these frontage improvements or cash in lieu thereof frontage improvements are collected and completed at building permit stage. So there still is a bit of time, but the sooner that that 4th Street Common project gets finalized, the sooner we have firmed up direction to inform developers of what their frontage improvements are going to be.
Yeah, so just a follow-up question through the mayor on that. So at the last Public Infrastructure Committee meeting, there was sections that were considered at that meeting. Recommendations will be coming back to council. So that's moving along. I believe that from the developer's perspective, to improve the quality of those frontages and access into bicycle lanes, that there might be some opportunity. I'm definitely be in favor of first and even second reading at this meeting, but I would like to have some of those answers prior to adoption. I'm definitely concurring with the idea of how do we get housing and expedite that kind of thing, but I don't want to make some mistakes along the way when we're so close to the implementation for that. There's some we have in the budget for 2025 some intersection improvements, and I believe that intersection is one of them that could be considered, and we might be able to get some synergies working with the developer at that time. So I think it's going to be important to have engineering be more explicit on the answers, and it's not just traffic calming, it's also the bicycle lanes that's been an important issue for the community and council as well. But thank you for that.
Any other questions? Councillor Orlando.
Through the chair, the acting mayor, yeah, I would agree with Councillor Palmer that it would be good to just get some clarity on the Traffic Lane project. I believe currently this year we funded the study for the traffic calming along 4th Street, the planning process of it, and in our upcoming budget, which is yet to be approved next year, we do have funds earmarked, if I'm correct, for implementation of that plan. But yeah, certainly what you're talking about, I know the residents want us to get moving on traffic safety and safe bicycle passageway through Southside. So it's an opportunity to make sure we're in alignment with that, and that everyone can work together, including the development community, the city staff, and other stakeholders who have been engaged to get this right and show that show how we can do it.
Thank you. Any other questions around the table? Councillor Cherry.
Through the chair to the planners, we're talking about intersection improvements on 4th right now. Just for clarity, none of that is on the developed land. That'll be all in the city right away. Therefore, shouldn't take any precedent away from this development.
Through your worship, Councillor Cherry, so the developer is responsible for improvements that are directly related to their immediate frontage. And I've spoken with the developer, they're aware that there will be frontage that are required at building permit stage. And Ms. Hartling just had the comment that if council would like to add in another resolution, because keep in mind, this is done at building permit stage. And I'm not going to speak for Director Black, but I know if Director Black is working on this project with council and we're so close to the finish line, the developer will be held to these standards because it is part of their frontage improvements, part of building permit. If council wants to pass a subsequent resolution directing that at building permit stage, frontage improvements are considered in light of any approved plans by council as part of the 4th Street project. Like with better wording, of course, than that, but we could look at adding something like that if it does add a comfort level for council today. So there are options here, but yeah, it's immediately related to their frontage of the property.
Perfect, and then a follow-up would be, I guess, through the chair to corporate, sorry. Would that be best written as an and that or as a number 6?
It could be a number 6.
Thank you. The reason I ask is I see no reason to stall development and lose another building season, or potentially this development in total, because we're adding things in that should be at building permit stage and not every.
Thanks. And yeah, I think with the comprehensive zoning bylaw rewrite, we would need this off the table before that comes forward. So I think that if we don't bring this through to adoption today, that just pushes that project farther down the road for us, if I'm not mistaken.
To your chair, yeah, it does pose complications. We want to have a really clean process for council considering the comprehensive rewrite where council can be slow and methodical in considering it and directing any changes. And we don't want to have, because that bylaw comprehensive rewrite will be repealing and replacing our existing zoning bylaw. So we don't want to have concurrent amendments that are seeking to amend a bylaw that we're proposing to repeal and replace. Does that make sense? It gets very convoluted in working with corporate services on that.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you. So we have this, the motion on the table is to read for first time. The question about another resolution, it feels sort of like an appeasement kind of resolution. Yeah, and I don't see it as being necessary at this time. I guess I would like to see us get past this first reading, and I'd be prepared to put a motion on the second reading at this meeting as well. And I think it's really important that we, in haste, that we not make mistakes. And I think there really is an opportunity for the developer here moving ahead, and that's what I'm trying to protect. And make sure to protect the interests of the community as well. We shouldn't be rushing and making mistakes for the sake of all these things. It's before us right now, and so that's kind of where I'm at this point. I see it as moving ahead, and look forward to that. I suggest calling the question in the first reading.
Any other council questions? For a call question? All in favor of first reading? Unanimous?
I'll put a motion to that zoning amendment bylaw 2402 be read a second time.
Is there a seconder for that? Councilor Devlin?
So I'll speak to the motion if I may. Here, Lucille. So with the second reading, everything's sort of moving ahead. I think this will come back for hopefully at the next meeting, which is this year or not? January. I'm gonna shrug because that is not a problem that I'm creating on that. I'll be supportive of the second reading. I'd be supportive of another meeting if required for pushing ahead. But that's what I'll be comfortable with. I don't think that there'll be a problem procedurally with the zoning rewrite. If everything's in order, we can see this being adopted in early January prior to the zoning stuff coming ahead. If I'm in error on any of that, I'd like to hear that.
I'm going to direct that to Director Simon, would this be able to hit our table before the comprehensive rewrite would? So we could get this adopted at the beginning of our meeting and then go into that later in our first January meeting.
To the chair. I guess because technically this property is proposed to receive the MD3 zoning as it currently sits in the draft zoning bylaw, and we wouldn't be looking at doing a mapping change regardless of the CD zone being adopted or not. We could potentially be considering this for adoption on the same day that we're considering the draft zoning bylaw rewrite for first reading, because if this bylaw is adopted, it shouldn't, I should say, staff would have to do a more detailed review. It shouldn't impact anything in the draft zoning bylaw, but there's a potential that it would, so we'd have to do a double check of that.
Okay, Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, it seems to me that with the understanding that there's any things can be dealt with on this particular application if it's adopted prior to the first reading, prior to the presentation of the zoning bylaw. And I'll be clear, I'll only be supportive of second reading at this point. I will not be supportive of third reading. I guess the other question I had, do we have a council meeting scheduled for another council meeting scheduled in December that was canceled? No? No, okay.
Councillor Staples.
Thank you. Through the chair, my concern with voting in favor of only a second reading at this time is that I believe that we are needlessly causing further delays to a housing development. And when we've all run on the platform of housing, and we all know that there's a housing crisis, not only nationwide, but in our own community, I feel like this is just further causing delays and expenses to the developers. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Councillor Devlin.
Yeah, just a comment through the chair. Just as a reminder, this is just a motion for second reading. There's nothing preventing anybody who might have the appetite to do so from putting a motion for third reading on after a second reading is passed. So I mean, this isn't necessarily delaying anything if that's the view, and I'm not suggesting anybody should do that. I'm just saying this isn't delaying, it's just kind of delaying us by 5 minutes potentially for splitting the two. But there's nothing that says if we vote yay or nay for second, that this we vote nay, we have to stop there. There's nothing to say if we vote yay for second, we have to stop at second. Just as a comment, so everybody's aware of that, it is not necessarily delaying anything.
I'll call a question on second reading. All in favor? Councillor Cherry.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2402 be adopted. Oh, sorry.
Read a third.
Read a third time.
Councillor Staples. Any discussion on that one?
Yeah, to speak to it, this council, when we were all elected, we all made election promises. We promised that we'd remove red tape. We promised that we do whatever's necessary to achieve our housing and affordability goals. We admitted there was a housing crisis and it was all one of our top priorities. I see no reason to slow this development down. And I see it only being a negative outcome for the community. We've had opportunities for the community to weigh in, give us any negative sentiment about this, and we've heard zero. On top of this, the CD application went through our community technical review body, the APC. That's after months of working with city staff. The APC understood the need for the CD zone, as it would enable this development to achieve an appropriate built form on the land, allowing for 14 units of housing instead of 7. So that. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Any other comments around the table? Councillor Orlando.
Yeah, through acting mayor, through the chair. I'm wondering here, my goal is to try to bring council together on this one, and hopefully we can all find a way to move things forward as some councillors would like to see. Certainly my only thing that I'm focusing on is, does it coordinate well with our plans for pedestrian safety? Does it coordinate well with our plans for bike lanes through this area? I have no idea on what sort of technical or resolution or whatever that would be. I was just expressing my support for Councillor Palmer. So my question through the chair of staff, perhaps if possible, if that would be amenable, I can't remember who moved this. Is there a way of achieving that now, of just having some assurance that what we're doing today is going to align with the other thing we're planning? The left hand knows what the right hand is doing, and this is all gonna work well together. When I look at the actual drawings, there's just one driveway on Fourth, which is, seems to be no problem in line with other things. And I'm just wondering about the intersections, all that kind of stuff. That's real simple question, real practical, common sense kind of thing. And I think if we have some good answers, I think we can get some unanimous support from moving forward.
Yeah, through the chair to the councillor. What you have in front of you today does provide a bit more assurances. You may have received a rezoning in the past that's just a rezoning application. What you have is a two-part application for development insurance. So you have the rezoning due to density issues with the R3 zone to allow this development for. But then you also have a development permit, which is the technical review prior to then getting into the building permit, which the building permit engineering does have a review where they require works and services agreement, offsite improvements. So when we do say this did meet the zoning, you had a development permit in front of you, you could require those things as a condition of that development permit. So you have a few different mechanisms in front of you today. The first is the rezoning, whether this development concept with the CD zone is appropriate for this piece of land. And then you have a development permit right after. And so that development permit is looking at some of the concerns that council has had today. So that is a separate recommendation, and I would recommend from a staff perspective, as if you are supportive of the rezoning, the development permit being considered after is a development permit, and then there's a condition for a landscape security. If there is a recommendation for conditions for engineering requirements, we have placed those on development permits in the past. This has gone through engineering and fire services for servicing and access, transportation requirements, and we have gone back and forth with the applicant and looked at the plans. Engineering has no concerns at this time for the concept outlined in the rezoning and development permit, and have noted that more requirements. These are the preliminary plans. The final plans will have to be confirmed with the building permit. So I'm not sure if that answers your questions, but yes, you can require that, but I would definitely recommend at the permit stage.
Through the chair, thank you so much to staff for providing an explanation. That does make sense. And I think in my view, just as a comment for council, I think there's a way to move forward here and just focus on the technicalities. I'm not sure if that meets the requirements or meets the objectives of that Councillor Palmer was seeking here, but it seems that there is a pathway to make sure that we are considering the residents of Southside, we're considering traffic safety, that we are coordinating with other agencies, including our internal departments, to make sure these work in harmony with each other and meet our goals, as well as the development applicants' goals in order to get things moving and get our internal processes or our planning processes going, as well as get some boots on the ground for construction.
Thank you. Councillor Sherry.
Just a comment. I believe all of that is summed up in the last bullet point on the council report.
Councillor Savenhurst.
Question. So hearing the concerns of Councillor Palmer, he was previously CC'd on an email that I sent to our engineering department regarding the impact of traffic on 4th Street. And having seen that email, I'm not sure if you've seen that email, and I'm willing to read the response from the engineering department if it's appropriate in this meeting, that hopefully will address any concerns regarding the traffic safety. And maybe that's a question through the chair to our Ms. Floyd as to whether or not I can introduce an email that pertains to the development.
Councillor Stapenhurst, is it for this development specifically?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And it came from the engineering department, so if Mr. Black was here, he would likely say what was in the email.
He was CC'd on the email, and it was a response from one of his employees, so.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, so The response that was that engineering has reviewed the development permit application for 1004 4th Street as part of the planning development department's referral process. Due to the small size of the proposed development, the additional trip generation and impact of the existing roadwork network is expected to be minimal, with no impact to the level of service of the 4th/Humber intersection anticipated. So based on how I am interpreting that email, it sounds like it's been vetted. It doesn't sound like they have any concerns. I don't see any reason at this point to hold up this development at this stage.
Thank you for your comment, and I know that the traffic needs assessment for the development before this had included this as well as the BC housing development in their whole traffic assessment. So this had no major impacts on that. Councillor Orlando and Councillor Palmer.
I prefer Councillor Palmer.
Councillor Palmer.
Yeah. Okay. Appreciate in advance your patience, Mayor Lucio, as I unpack a few things here. First of all, in general, and actually in some specifics, I'm in favor of this development. I want to make sure that's very, very clear. I'm going to, as I have repeated in the past, so this is the same song sheet that I've gone from before. The used to be that municipality, Revelstoke, would have a public hearing on zoning things. There was some provisions for bypassing that, but generally there'd be a public hearing where there was a formal process for the public to be able to provide input. That requirement was eliminated by the province, and then this year or last year, they put in new legislation that prohibited the municipality from holding public hearings for zoning if it complied with the OCP. So basically, they've shut us out, and we're going along with that, shutting out the public ability. One of the councillors said that the public has had opportunity. The public has not had that formal opportunity that was afforded to them in the past, and almost for certain would have been done for comprehensive development zones. It is not the community's fault. It's not this council's fault. It's not staff's fault. I hope that this is coming at the last minute before we're considering the zoning, major zoning rewrite. Actually, that was scheduled to be happening this fall, not in the new year originally. Actually, if we go back, there's dates, that's sort of normal. There's no blame on that. But I do not believe that we should be hastily going through and jumping through hoops unnecessarily on moving ahead. Right now, we have third reading on the table, and Councillor Orlando's trying to look for a solution to moving ahead in a positive way. And that solution, I think, was fairly simple. Let's have that in a due course without rushing through items to move them ahead. And I think that could have been done. Right now with third reading, of course, there's only 6 councillors here. There's 3 people that vote against it. The application is dead. That would be unfortunate. I will be voting against it because of those procedural things. And I just don't think it's fair to the community. I also don't think it's fair to the developer, because I think there is an opportunity that is not reflected in the report that we just heard last week at the Public Works, the Public Infrastructure Committee regarding transportation. It is not reflected in here. And I do not concur with the statement that there is minimal impacts. I think that if we move ahead with this, the risk is that we do work that the developer does work that's unnecessary, or else we redo work in the future. I think there's an opportunity that's a win-win for both the community and for the developer. So I might end up being the person that's, the naysayer here, or perceived to be the naysayer. And that's certainly not my intent. But I'm not going to be strong-armed into making hasty decisions when I see flaws in the process and flaws in the particular application. Hopefully that can get, if this goes through third reading, then hopefully we can put some additional wording in there that strengthens the application a little bit. But if I review the things that we're doing, is we're rushing through first, second, third, and adoption. I've spoken against that process. We're rushing through without ample time for sober reconsideration or a little bit of tweaking. You say, okay, well, you're wasting the developer's time, not allowing it to go ahead. Well, here I am harping on again, taking up time that's unnecessary if we just went through a proper process, methodical and consideration of the community. And so that's my frustration. It's my frustration because I want to see the project go ahead. I want to see it go ahead in a timely fashion. But my first responsibility is to the community on the whole, and that includes procedural processes. Thank you, Mayor Lucio.
Thank you for your comments. Councilor Chair.
Through the chair to staff, have we met all procedural requirements? As we've just been told by Councilor that we're not.
Councillor Cherry, yes, we have met all of the new legislative requirements.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Councilor Orlando?
Your acting worship, yeah, just a general comment. This is an individual application, so we need to focus on the individual application at hand, and so that's what I'm trying to do. But I feel that the point is well taken on, for me at least, on what Councillor Palmer is saying about first, second, third reading and final adoption. This is not usual. I realize there may be extenuating circumstances such as desire for council to get moving with our zoning bylaw discussion in the new year. Nevertheless, I again would like to reiterate that I'm trying to bring people together here. We can't have a divisive conversation at council where we just have two sides on a debate. That's fine. If people want to go that way, I think there's an opportunity to have a better environment at the council table, though, as we move through with these decisions. And this is just generally speaking, sort of reading the vibe in the room. And finally, regarding introducing correspondence at the meeting, I believe the council procedures bylaw requires a majority vote for that. I was not aware of this email, although some people may have been CC'd on it. I was not. So this is for me considering new information about something that I believe needs to be introduced by council vote. I don't know if there's any direction on that one. I'm going to let it slide as far as I'm concerned right now, but in the future we need to do that. I don't believe that we can have a bunch of correspondence put aside and then bring it up if necessary. I'm not sure, I could be wrong on that one as well.
Thank you for your comments. Councilor Sickhurst.
I'll refrain from any comment at this time. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to call the question. Third reading. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor Palmer is opposed. Balance of council is in favor. Councilor Cherry.
Move that zoning amendment bylaw number 2402 be adopted.
Councilor Stapner, second. Discussion on the matter. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor Palmer is opposed. Balance of council is in favor. Councilor Cherry.
Move that development permit be issued for the form and character of a 14-unit ground-oriented multifamily development at 1004 4th Street East.
Seconder for that. Councilor Stapner.
Should there be two brackets in that?
Probably, yeah.
One's not closed.
Which one's not closed? First, yes, there should be.
Do you need us to amend it or?
Councilor Cherry, do you want to speak on this?
I think everything's on the table already. I don't know how much more I can add to it, but I'll see if I need to.
Okay. Any questions from Councilor Palmer?
Just bringing up the motion here. So the motion right now is as written in the recommendation without any conditions. We've talked about some conditions adding regarding the development along 4th Street, the traffic calming and the bicycle lanes. And again, I'll just refer back to the Public Infrastructure Committee last week where there was cross sections that were recommendation will be coming back to council. The question that I have through the chair to staff, is this development permit resolution critical for the timelines as was for the zoning amendment bylaw for the CD zone?
Through your chair, yes, the development permit is a key application to be able to have the development implemented in 2025. Rezoning is definitely needed, but the rezoning was needed to be able for council to consider this development permit. Otherwise, the applicant would have waited for the zone, the new draft zoning bylaw, and then bring the development permit at a later date. But the development permit is the key permit being able to be issued so that they can go forward with their building permit.
I do have just a follow-up comment. I would like to see a condition on, and there was some dialogue on that, but the options that were further down, that there would be some conditions regarding the developer working with the engineering department on the current recommendations from the Public Infrastructure Committee regarding cross sections on the 4th Street and also the intersection on Humbert. I would like to see that as a requirement on this, and I don't see any problem with that. But I'll let other councillors speak before putting a potential amendment motion.
Councillor Jerry?
For clarification through the staff, is it DP the appropriate time for this or building permit time internally?
Through the chair to councillor, at this time, you could place a condition, just how we've done with the landscape security, where development permit be issued, and you could either have it as a number 6, or you could say development permit be issued, and that at time of building or on condition of building permit issuance, the applicant address the 4th Street calming. Basically, we can put it as a condition into the permit. Of the development permit prior to building permit.
With that in mind to the chair, I'd be happy to do that as a number 6 once we get there with your help, Councilor Palmer.
Councilor Palmer?
Yeah, through the chair. So, and a question to staff. So with this development permit resolution, the option 1 was adding any requirements that may be cited by council. So if this resolution was amended to say with the requirement that the developer work with engineering to ensure that the 4th Street calming and bicycle paths and the Humbert Street intersection are consistent with the recommendations from the Public Infrastructure Committee. Do you see any problems with that?
To the chair, no, you could add that to the number 4. Mr. Simon has more to that.
And through the chair to Councilor Palmer, it might be neater to add it as an item 6, and Ms. Floyd has been obviously listening in the whole time and crafted a little bit of a resolution if council does want to try to take into account the factors here. And it could be something more general, because again, there could still be some tweaks and changes before council finalizes that 4th Street project, which is totally understood. So we're kind of walking and chewing gum at the same time here, which we're used to, that's okay. So, there could be a resolution along the lines of that the developer is required to demonstrate compliance with the required frontage improvements in accordance with the ongoing plans related to 4th Street calming project prior to issuance of a building permit. Because what that does is it allows us for the developer to get their building permit issued, and then maybe the offsite improvements or the frontage improvements are kind of happening coinciding with the construction, but making sure it's following the plans approved by council.
Thank you. Councilor Baum?
Thank you, Mayor Lucio. Hopefully the planner can repeat what he just said, because I'd be happy to make that motion or as a amending motion to the development permit requirement. Then I would be in support of this motion, and it doesn't seem to create any additional problems.
Okay.
So on the basis of that, I will make an amended motion exactly how Mr. Simon stated, is more elegant words or.
Yeah, can I hear that back from staff?
You may, yes. So that development permit 2313 be issued for the form and character of a 14-unit ground-oriented multi-family development at 1004 4th Street East, subject to the developer being required to demonstrate compliance with the required frontage improvements in accordance with ongoing plans related to the 4th Street traffic calming project prior to issuance of the development permit.
So Mayor Lucio, that is my motion. I've never been so elegant.
Is there a seconder for that, Councilor?
Is it amending?
It's an amending motion.
So I have to?
No, it's not a friendly amendment.
Okay.
It's an angry amendment.
Any other questions regarding this?
Sorry, was there a second?
Councilor Devlin.
Yeah, I can make a comment. Happy to move this along.
Councilor Stabenhurst and then Councilor Palmer.
I'll second what Councilor Cherry just said.
Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, I certainly thank council for and the chair for your patience with me. It's important, it's very, very important for me. I want to see the development being very successful. And I think this will actually help it be more successful. I think this discussion will help it be more successful moving ahead. So I do thank Councilor Orlando seeking that consensus where we can come together, and that certainly has helped me with the passing of this amending motion. Thank you.
Councilor Orlando.
Through the acting mayor, through the chair. Yeah, I would like to commend Councilor Palmer for working towards what he believes in here, you know, as a council here. And I see Councilor Cherry laughing. I don't think that's very respectful. Anyways, he's working towards something that he believes in here, and he's managed to find a solution with the discussions at the table that seeks some guarantees about the project that is important to members of Southside for the safety of the community. And there should be nothing to scoff at with that. I think we could have been much more quick in this discussion if council was open to teamwork. That's my feeling here. So thank you, Councilor Palmer, and thank you to the chair for overseeing the discussion.
I'm going to call this motion as amended. All in favor?
I think amending a motion first.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, voting on the amendment to the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Now I'm going to call the motion as amended. All in favor? Opposed? Balance of council is in favor. Does anyone put number 5 on? Councilor Devlin.
I move that the owner provide security for the due and proper completion of landscaping, the amount of 125% of the amount identified in the cost estimate of the city of Revelstoke in the form of cash or unconditional, irrevocable, auto-renewing letter of credit issued by Canadian Chartered Bank or Credit Union prior to the issuance of the building.
All in one breath. Good job. Second for that, Councilor Stabenhurst. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Moving on to 10, unfinished business. So we'll put that on the table. Do we want to discuss the tax increase percent so we know what we want to put on the table? Because that was the only section of that is blank.
No.
So obviously went out to Councilor Cherry.
I'm wondering if we have a presentation on this. Through the chair to Ms. Moore.
Through the chair, I do not have a presentation. I have updated the report for the recent feedback that came in up to December 8th. Everything within the spending initiatives and tax increases within the motions remain the same from what was presented before. The only item I have left blank is the property tax percentage increase, as we have the 4 scenarios. I'm happy to try to answer any questions related to the engagement, or what I read that came in related to the survey. So I'll leave it at that.
Councilor Orlando.
You were, to the chair, just a real quick question, and I might have missed it in an email. It shows that it has been updated with the little A symbol there, and I'm just double checking what.
Councilor Orlando through Mayor Lucio. It was updated and a notification was sent out advising that it was updated on Monday, I believe, because the cutoff for public engagement was Sunday. So we added all of the additional information.
Thank you.
Councilor Devlin and Councilor Orlando.
Oh, go ahead. I will defer to Councilor Orlando.
Through the acting mayor, I sensed a pause in conversation, so I am happy to put this forward unless somebody wants to jump in for anything that should be discussed ahead of time.
Just start to have a discussion with a motion on the table. Going to be indicated. So
Sure.
somebody's got to bite the bullet or something on it.
Councilor Orlando, go for it.
I will do it. So I move that the City of Revelstoke's 2025 to 2029 5-year financial plan bylaw and future utility user rates bylaw be prepared on the basis of the following: 4% increase in property taxes in 2025, 3% increase in property taxes in each year from 2026 to 2029, 10% increase in garbage user rates in 2025, 5% increase in garbage user rates, plural, sorry, slight amendment there, in each year from 2026 to 2029, 5% increase in water user rates in 2025, 5% increase in water user rates in each year from 2026 to 2029, 5% increase in Big Eddy water user rates in 2025, 5% increase in Big Eddy water user rates in each year from 2026 to 2029, 5% increase in sewer user rates and franchise taxes in 2025, and 5% increase in sewer user rates and franchise taxes in each year from 2026 to 2029. And I will, as they are numbered, stop there.
Thank you for that. Just a clarification of the 4% increase on property taxes.
That's right.
Seconder for that, Councilor Devlin. Open the floor up to discussion. Councilor Staper.
A question for the chair of Councilor Orlando. I do believe that the recommended increase in property taxes in 2025 was 6%. So my question to you is, why did you opt to add 4%?
It was, if through the chair, I believe it was listed open here, like as in there's not a number listed.
Yeah. Again, through the chair, for clarity, I do believe that the recommendation from the Director of Financial Services, and she can correct me if I'm not mistaken, was a 6% increase in property taxes in 2025. So again, I'm asking for you to please elaborate on why you opted with a 4% increase in property taxes instead of the recommended 6% as previously discussed.
Yes, Your Worship, the acting mayor through the chair. There was a long, pregnant pause at the council table where everybody seemed to be looking at each other and not taking a direction. So I moved forward with a number to get the conversation started. Once the motion is put forward, it is available for council to change, discuss, and edit, and move forward with something else if they would so prefer. So I'm getting the conversation going, which according to our procedure bylaw typically starts with putting a motion forward of some kind.
Thank you. Can I ask a question of Director Moore on Councilor Staper's comments? Was the 6% the recommendation for me?
Through the chair, that is correct. The 6% is the recommendation from staff. 4% will give you 1.25% towards the core base budget, 2.75% for spending initiatives, and 2% to continue saving and building reserves for the arena. I understand that the target for the arena is blurry as to where we are heading. However, if the city does not continue to save and increase our transfers to reserves, it will be very difficult for us to have any options in the future. So that is why the 6% is being recommended in the 2025 budget.
Thank you very much. Councilor
A
Stichels.
question through the chair to Councilor Orlando. Would you be willing to consider a friendly amendment to increase the property taxes in 225 from your proposed 4% to 6%?
I would prefer, through the chair, procedurally, it would be an amendment that somebody would make and it would be available for discussion. Yeah.
Councilor Butler.
Thank you, Mayor Lucio. I'm going to talk specifically, we're talking a lot around the property tax, the percentage increase right now, and discussing a number of other things that are embedded in the motion. So I'm going to talk about I got two conversation items here. One on the property tax discussion that we're having right now, and then overall on the motion. Which comes first? I'll talk to the property taxes first. So the 6% increase, I believe, would be more appropriate. I would concur with staff recommendation on 6% on the basis of the community feedback. When we look at the community feedback overall on the percentage increases, if you add the appetite for the 7% and the 6%, 5%, then it's, there's a larger amount. Now, a number of people are wanting a decrease in service, and whether that's representative of the community, I mean, there can be arguments for and against that. So on that, I might come back to that and even propose an amending motion to go to the 6%. The greater problem that I see, and I think it's because of habits that we've created at the council table, is we're dealing with a whole bunch of items on here, and I can be supportive of some and others I'm not supportive of. And so that created the problem. And I think that might be really the big problem of the pause. My problem with the pause and not willingness to put the motion on the table was not the percentage of property taxes per se, although we need to have a good debate on that. It was some of the other items in there that I have some concerns regarding. And so in hindsight, I would have preferred to actually probably seen each one of these as separate motions, and we could see what's being done, but we're trying to capture everything in one motion. And that might be challenging as we learn more about what the implications are, what we might or might not be in favor. So just going back to the property tax increases, further to Councillor Stapenhurst's comments, I would put an amending motion that the increase in property taxes be amended to reflect 6% in replacement of 4% in 2025. And if there's a second, then we're just talking about the property tax issue.
Councillor Stapenhurst.
I'll second that motion.
Councillor Devlin.
Just a general comment and maybe like a soft request. Whilst I concur with the concept of a 6% being a better end goal, perhaps, than a 4%, in my personal opinion, we are kind of now, before we've had any real debate on the number in discussion, we're now getting into a nesting doll of amendments when we could have just had the conversation, come up with a conclusion kind of generally as a council, and put whatever amendment that would be forward at that point, it just seems like we're really making this very much complicated when it doesn't have to be, by putting amendments on pre sort of debate. So I think we should have the discussion about the points, whatever points there may be, get that discussion out of the way, and then we can put forth any amendments that we feel that we've come to a consensus on, or even that one councillor wants to put forward. I'd like to have the concept of the debate first, because right now we're just kind of switching the number, and now we're going to be voting on an amendment and then voting on original. It's become this measure of it all of. Honestly.
Thank you, through the chair, valid points. And I guess what I was trying to do is actually focus in just on the percentage with that amending motion, not to confuse it, but I definitely see your lens. I could withdraw that motion, but then we have all these things on the table.
It's fine.
So I think I'll leave it on, then we're talking about just the percentage.
If we're gonna start switching around numbers, let's maybe have the conversation first, get on the same general page.
Yeah, okay.
Any other comments from council? Councilor Leonard? No?
No, I think, yeah, just seeking follow-up from the mover of the amendments.
Councilor Ballmer?
Yeah, so just speaking to the amending motion, going from the current 4% to the 6%. On that item alone, and it's really, I have to mention the arena thing. I think we need to be talking multiplex, and I'd like to get rid of that word. I made that comment before. Because if it's just about the arena, then I'm not in favor. However, we have struck a massive committee that's focused on putting our multiplex building and moving it ahead. We've gone through other documentation. I have to go back to see what those resolutions are. So are we serious about that, or are we not serious about that? Because if we're going to be at the 4%, say there's nothing for the multiplex building, then let's dissolve that committee and quit doing that. If we were just joking in the past, if we're serious about that, then let's put some money in it. And that's what it's going to cost, and get that dialogue moving ahead. We won't be successful if we pull this back on that project, and it's going to be a challenging project regardless. So in the 6% is a compromise, and it's reflective of the community feedback saying, yeah, have a little bit of an increase, but don't shoot for the moon. The 7% is too much. So the 6% is, if you add that to the 7%, it would also be in support of the 6% rather than a smaller amount. I see it as a significant number. So that's why I'd be in favor of that increase, including a 2% tax increase for the multiplex building. Thank you.
Councilor Edward?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that point. In full transparency, I am not a personal user of the arena. I've personally have no interest in hockey. I have no interest in most arena-based sports or multiplex-based sports. I see the use of it for the community, and for the last 2 years, when we've gone out to this engagement since this came across, it has been wildly in favor of the small amount of engagement we get. And I do understand that the engagement we get is not a very good statistical, or even not a statistical representation, if we're being honest, but it is the engagement we have, and it is the voice of the public that we get. And it has been wildly in favor for adding to this reserve. And this year now, we're kind of seeing a lot of people saying, no, stop, pump the brakes on that. But I don't think that's an option. I mean, it is an option, but in 20 years or 10 years or 15 years, probably closer to 10, when the arena is condemned and we have lost the Grizzlies and we have lost any option to move forward, we would just have to start again at that point. We will not be remembered as the council who listened in the 2025 budget deliberation. We'll be remembered as the council who let the arena die. So I understand life is expensive. I understand there's a lot of concerns about where we are getting money for a lot of these large infrastructure projects, but at the end of the day, we have made a commitment to the community with their support up until now to do this thing. And I think we have to continue to do this thing. I don't really see how putting it 0 or even a 1% and scaling back would be any benefit to the community long term. It would be slightly less expensive this year. And in 10 years, it would be massively more expensive when the entire amount has to be borrowed through a referendum and passed.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments or questions around the table? Councilor Orlando?
Yes, through the acting mayor. Yeah, definitely, 2 budgets ago, I supported increasing the allocation for the reserve fund for the arena, and also supported funding last year as well. Ultimately, I just have a question for staff through the chair if possible. And I'm going to express my concern in plain words here. In the outreach that we did, although it is not statistically relevant, and I think like 98% of the people were anonymous and were not required to provide their name or anything, or not logged into the system. The wording of the question about should we be putting some money aside, I think it would be reasonable for anybody to say, yeah, we should be putting some money aside. However, it did not say that we, as a matter of course, we are already putting money aside, and we have increased that for the past 2 years. So my question through the chair is, what if we do not increase any more funding? This is hypothetical, I'm not advocating it for it. How much will we be putting away this year if there was no extra allocation in this budget right now?
Dr. Moore?
Through the chair, I will note that there's 434 survey responses and a statistically representative sample is 368 for Revelstoke. I will confirm that survey responses were not required to sign in or sign up, so they are anonymous. As for 2025 transfers to reserves, without any further increases, it is approximately $700,000 annually.
Okay. Chair, thank you so much. So to be clear, it is not 0 that we would be putting in the reserve fund. It is 700,000. We will be putting in the reserve fund at a 4% increase, and then by increasing it by 2% would increase whatever the corresponding amount for that is. Just to be clear, so everyone knows where I'm coming from, moving forward with these sort of communications, I think it's best to be a bit more clear, because if I was coming at this out of the blue and saw the wording there, I go, oh my God, I'm not putting anything aside for this. Yeah, we should put something aside for it here. So that's my take on current situation.
Thank you for your comments. Anything else around the table? I'll call the question on the amendment to 6%. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor Orlando is opposed. Balance of council is in favor. Any other comments before I call the question? Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, so comment going back to the overall motion. Sorry, just going back. And the reason why I said ooh, because we've talked about one little component on here, and now hopefully we'll have some dialogue or some comments on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 other tax or user rate fees in this resolution. I'm just saying, as I get my thoughts together, I'm just hoping you're not calling the question that quick. Maybe others are hoping that you would call it that quick and get it over with.
Councilor Dever.
As one of the people who was hoping you'd call it that quick and get it over with, I'll comment on it. I mean, I hope to give Councilor Palmer a little bit of time to process. Well, we've had quite a few conversations about every line on here at finance committee meetings. I realize that those are not necessarily easily accessed by the public. However, it's not to say that these aren't things that have been discussed. They certainly have been discussed. Those discussions have been, in some cases, long and lengthy, and in other cases, just kind of taken as a recommendation, status quo, but they have been discussed. I personally, I have very little to say. This is just to remind everybody, this is a motion on preparing the long-term financial plan bylaw. This is not a motion on passing said bylaw. We are not reading this bylaw today. this is to give staff direction on how that bylaw will be prepared to come back to us, where these things can be altered and changed once again if we feel that that's needed, although we try to avoid that by giving direction. And that's about all the time I can waste for Councillor Palmer to think, so I'm going to leave my comments there.
Councillor Palmer, are you ready?
I'm ready, but if there's other councillors that are wanting to speak to anything on the motion, I'm happy to hear that first. No, just me. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Devlin, for your summary there. It was useful, and I think useful for the public, noting that there's been quite a bit of dialogue on this. I do have a question for staff, if I may. We had the survey on that's in the report regarding some of the user fees that states is statistically valid regarding the tax increase. But anyway, the other items on there, can staff just give a quick snapshot on the feedback that we've had on the user rates? Water, sewer, Big Eddy, or has it been fairly minimal? Just a sort of a quick summary of the public feedback we've had so far.
Through the chair, the survey was geared towards property taxes specifically. So the questions are geared around the property tax increase and services that are paid by property taxes. We did make note that water and service utilities are considered high priority for the community in the survey question. We did get several comments in the additional comments section that they felt like water and sewer services were of high priority and they would really like to see the wastewater treatment plant get addressed and upgraded. It's interesting to see where some of the votes landed, as it's hard to craft a survey that everyone interprets exactly the same. However, there were, I would say, another theme of residents or businesses speaking about affordability right now. Was another big thing that was noted. There were several comments where people indicated that they would have voted yes for increased transfers to arena reserves if they understood more about the project. So there are certainly a few comments about that. I'm not overly surprised that roads and bridge infrastructure is high priority for the community. I think we've heard that before through various avenues. But essentially, I would say some of the key themes would be affordability across the board for everyone, the wastewater treatment plant upgrade, and various other miscellaneous comments that are published online through the survey.
Thank you, through the chair, or to the council. I'll be supportive of the motion. There is this contradiction of fairly high increases in the issue of affordability, and I think we're going to be hearing more and more of that in years going ahead. This is not a decision on the budget, and hopefully we will listen to the residents as they provide feedback going ahead. I think we shortchanged them last year a little bit at the end, but hopefully we hear that. The concerns that I've heard on water and sewer rates, and including the Big Eddy, I've heard that from individuals in the community, but there hasn't been a big cry out on that. And also we're hearing, okay, that things with the water treatment plant and, the sewage treatment plant, we need to get that moving along, increase in costs that we've been facing. So I'll be supportive of the motion as it is, but I think it is really an important thing that we need to hear from the residents. If there's relative silence, then we probably are going to march ahead, but I'll be in support of the motion as it's read right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilor Orlando?
Thank you. So right now, the resolution before us is to create bylaws based on the what is set forward. So this is one step in an ongoing process that will also allow for additional input and feedback. I guess my general comment sort of echoes my last one, and that was during the engagement process or the start of it, I did ask staff if we would be able to see comments from residents, and they said yes, and they are included in the package. And if other community members want to go read them, they can. However, I was not detail oriented enough, and my assumption would have been that these are people I know who are putting their name on the comment and writing in. This was not required. There was a few of them, but the vast majority were anonymous comments from people who we cannot verify their identity. We don't know if they live in the community or what. I mean, I assume the majority of them would, but in order to communicate with them, it would be nice to know who they are and hear the stories, be able to connect with them. I don't think in our communication framework here we have the ability to do that. It's just sort of random messages in the night from people who who knows what it is. So that's problematic for me, and as a sort of process oriented person, and also really trying to maintain that connection with community members. I think it's challenging to with the feedback we have so far to know what is what. And also I think with statistical relevance, it's hard to also judge that. So for example, can I jump on there multiple times from my cell phone and my computer to do multiple comments if I'm hopped up about the budget process and whatnot. So yeah, that's the main thing. But as we move forward, I'm happy to hear from stakeholders, and thank you to residents who did write in. I've read all of the comments, including anonymous ones and ones from people who submitted emails or letters through them, and I'm curious to continue with that engagement as we go through this process this year.
Okay, I'll call the first motion as amended. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor Orlando, are you opposed? Or in favor?
I'm just seeking clarity prior to that, and sorry, I should have. This is the amendment to with the amendment to 6% included, or have we gone past that already?
That's included.
It's included. So Councillor, Acting Mayor Lucio called the question on the amendment, which was to increase to 6%, and now he is calling the question on the original motion
with the
as
increase
amended.
to 6%. Okay, I will vote in favor of that discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone want to put the second motion on? Councilor Devlin.
Well, move that the following new operating spending initiatives be included in the city's budget and related financial plan bylaw as per the package.
Seconder for that, Councilor Cherry. Any discussion on these spending initiatives? Councilor Khan.
I'll keep my comments brief. This was discussed in some detail in budget meetings or committee of the whole or other venues. And I was drilling down into, I'm going to make sure I'm in the right spot here. Sorry. Mayor. So we are. The motion, sorry, where are we on the motion?
We are on 10-2, the new operating spending initiatives.
Right. Okay, so I'll continue. So those new spending initiatives have been discussed with council. I would have liked us to drill down into more detail, but I won't go through all that stuff again at this meeting. So the motion is on the table right now, is that correct?
Yes.
So speaking to the motion, my concern is we spent time on how we're going to spend more money, but we spent very minimal time on how we're going to reduce costs. That's been a theme for a couple of years, so I have some concerns on the overall aspect of the spending initiatives. I guess this will be going before the public and they can make comments on it as they see fit, but those would be my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments around the table? We'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Palmer is opposed. Balance of council is in favor. So I'm going to put number 3 on the table. Councillor Stapers.
I move that the pre-budget approval for 2025 be granted for a full-time flex firefighter position.
Second for that, Councillor Devlin. Any discussion around this? Councillor Palmer?
There's a mover on the move. Councillor.
I was just gonna make a comment that we have even, I mean, it's nice to see some of these survey options. It's good to see that fire rescue and protective services has received a rather high percentage of people who thought that was in the top 3, so that's good. I think this is necessary. We have heard multiple times that we are lagging very much behind in our full-time firefighter positions. To play some catch up here, and unfortunately that's going to, I mean, yeah, a little bit of that is going to come at the expense of the taxpayer. Hopefully for next year we'll have some alternative options, but either way, this service.
Thank you for that. Councillor Palmer?
Thank you. So through the mayor, just have a quick question on the 2025 budget approval is for a full time, so that full amount. When will this firefighter position be in place, and should that be prorated? It's a substantial period of time for 2025.
Go ahead, chief.
Hear my name.
When does the new firefighter start?
Oh, so the candidate has been selected and is expected to start December 30th.
Okay.
To begin that first cycle.
Thank
So that
you.
would be a full year.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions around the table? I will call the question. All in favor? Unanimous. So I'm going to put number 4 on the table. Councillor Devlin.
I'll move the pre-budget approval for 2025 be granted for the RCMP part-time clerk position.
Seconder for that. Councillor Cherry. Any discussion on this motion? I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Number 5. Councillor Devlin.
Move that the following new capital project spending initiatives be included in the city's budget and related financial plan bylaw as per the package.
And a seconder for that. I will second that one. Any discussion on that? See no questions. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Moving on to 11A staff reports, 2025 meeting dates.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Luciao. So we've had a few previous discussions on the council and committee meeting dates. Staff are recommending that that the council and committee of the whole meeting dates be approved, excluding the month of August and the last meeting in December, so that staff and council can plan in advance. We did remove the August meetings last year, but it wasn't at this stage. The only other things that are to be discussed today is typically council meetings start at 3 p.m. We did hear that council would like consistency between council and committee of the whole, so 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock. That could be a decision that council makes today, or it could be referred to the governance committee for future years. And then additionally, there was one other thing I wanted to bring up, sorry. I'm lost. So yes, that's what's on the table.
Thank you for that. Does someone want to put the first motion on the table? Councillor Sandhurst.
I move that the schedule of the regular council and committee of the whole meeting dates for 2025 be approved.
And the seconder for that? Councillor Palmer. Councillor Sandhurst.
Yeah, I'd like to just speak to the motion. I think I find it's really problematic, the late starts, the 3 p.m. starts. I find that it'd be interesting to know on average how long do our meetings last. And an example would be our last council meeting. We started at 3 and it was 6:30, 6:45 before we were out of here. And the problem that I have with that isn't so much a personal impact. While it does have a personal impact for myself, I think really when we look at our schedule and we look at what are those last items, and are we just rushing through it just for the purpose of getting done and going home, and are we really doing our due diligence and addressing the issues that are before us when they're last on the schedule? So what I would propose is actually an earlier start date. I would personally, I'd love to see like a 1 o'clock or I'd be willing to settle for 2 o'clock, but I think a 1 o'clock would be ideal, and I think it would leave enough time in the day for us to have good, thorough discussions and talk about the agenda without feeling rushed and with the ability to kind of really digest it. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other comments around the table? Councillor Orlando?
Thank you. Yeah, just in terms of, we're just on the first item here, which is the actual council meeting dates only. Is that correct? Not the rest of the meetings. Yeah. I guess my question would be is if there is a plan or a tendency to cancel a meeting in August to do that now instead of waiting until that point, so people can plan around that one. As long as I have been coming to this room, there usually is an August meeting that is canceled. So that would be one thing I would like to put up for discussion right now. Secondly, yeah, the time for the meeting, first of all, this has been discussed several times in council history. There's not a perfect answer. There is no perfect answer to this. However, what I think would be good is if we could align these, align it at least to policies that undergird what would be a good time for that, including, I can't remember the name of it, our inclusive council policies. One of the challenges I had with the way the survey was done is it allowed morning or afternoon. It didn't sort of have a more comprehensive system for determining a good time, including not just with council, but also with staff as well. And I did forward an email to the CAO with some recommendations on how we could proceed with the process a little bit better. I'm not sure where that went to. And again, final thing is there's not a good answer to a perfect time for this, but I would tend to agree pushing a meeting later instead of earlier sort of seems to be going in the wrong direction, especially when we're getting into dinner time and just natural human cycles of meeting with family, eating. It seems like starting at 2 would be, for both of them, would be a little preferable in my feelings. So.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? Councillor Palmer, then Councillor Devlin.
I'll let Councillor Devlin.
I was just gonna, so I'm generally not picky about the start times. I am happy to see them align with each other, whether that be 2 or 3. I'm not specifically picky about. An earlier time could conceivably work. I mean, it is difficult when you hold other jobs trying to schedule around other jobs. Obviously, this is the priority and that has to be done, but the earlier you go, the less likely you are to be able to utilize those days in terms of other jobs. I believe that the current schedule as it's written here has both starting at 3. I would be more than happy to support that being amended to 2. And then we could also go with the staff recommendation, which was up in August and December 23rd. But that's just my comments.
A question through the chair to Councillor Devlin. Would you be willing to support an amendment to start at 1?
I wouldn't say no to an amendment to start at one if it had, if everybody around the table seemed amenable to it. I'm not, as I said, I'm not particularly picky. I'm happy to see them aligned because that makes scheduling easier in general. I'm not opposed to a 1 o'clock start. I'm neutral on the specific start time.
Councilor Staples.
Can I make an amendment to the motion to have the regular council and committee of the whole meeting dates for 2025 start at 1?
Second for that, Councilor Palmer. Discussion around the table. Councilor Orlando.
If at all possible, I'm happy with that, but if at all possible, I'd like an opportunity for staff to provide comment as well, because it affects not just council members, but also the staff and senior staff.
Is there any directors that want to weigh in on the 1 o'clock meeting time for council and committee of the whole?
We're
Or
here.
CAO?
I'll
Yeah.
start. I don't think it makes a difference for most of us. I mean, we're here. This is your council meeting. It's really your time. I've worked with council starting at 9 a.m., 2 o'clock and 6 p.m. in the evening over my years. But it's not a staff meeting, it's a council meeting. So it's your decision. Staff will be there whatever time you decide.
Councilor Palmer.
Thank you. So through the chair, just general to staff, good answer. And good CEO and leadership on that. That's quite appropriate. From my lens, I'm very flexible on the timing. However, I do prefer the earlier start because of the two things that happen is these meetings go on. For example, today I have a meeting with someone at 5:30, and am I going to make that or not? And then often we get into the hangry zone that the meetings go on for a long time. Some of the members at this table might blame me, but it's a la vie that I've been with. I've worked with more than one community where meetings have gone on until 11 in the evening, and special resolutions as per the bylaw to allow it to continue on beyond that. And so the earlier start, and from my past experience as far as staffing goes, is there's a fatigue going in late in the day. So having meetings during regular working days, from my memory, they might disagree in their inside voices, but that is actually a little bit better for staff during the day rather than going into evening meetings. So I'll support the motion as suggested there.
Thank you for that. Can I just get some clarification through staff? Is this with the August meetings and December meeting removed, or is this still with all of those on the table?
At this point, Acting Mayor Luciao, it is just to amend the start time to 1 p.m. Following calling this question, an additional amendment could be put on the table to remove those meetings.
Okay. Any other? The nesting doll. Any other comments before I call the question on the amendment? Okay, all in favor of changing meeting times to 1 p.m. Unanimous. Councilor Palmer.
Yeah, so I'll just speak to the actual dates. On the sort of question regarding the August council meetings and the August committee of the whole. I certainly recognize the reality of August. It's getting difficult and people are on holidays and stuff like that. On the council meeting, I'd be reluctant to cancel both August meetings. That's a long period of time. And then in September, we also canceled a meeting, I believe, for UBCM. So on that basis, I put an amending motion that the August 26th council meeting and the August 14th committee of the whole be deleted from the regular schedule.
And December 23rd.
And the December 23rd. Thanks for
Sounds
reading
great.
my mind.
Seconder for that, Councilor Devlin. Comments, Councilor Orlando?
No, I was just saying.
Any comments on canceling those meetings? Councilor Orlando, is that?
No, I just want to start with a quick comment. Moving forward, this 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock thing, there's historical reasons it's been going on forever. I think after the next election cycle, just as a footnote to staff to work with the next council and us again next year when we need to decide this to try and work with them to find out what's going to be best in order to be inclusive and make council available to anyone as we go forward. I don't want to put any formal resolution or motion together, but that's just my thoughts that I'm glad we had this chat together, and hopefully subsequent councils can also community members can consider running for council, knowing that they'll have some sort of input on the schedule.
Thank you. I will call the question on the motion to cancel the August meetings and December meeting. Sorry,
amending motion.
Yes. Sorry, Councilor Orlando, do you?
Yeah, did you say, I thought you said one August meeting on both?
Yes,
Just
sorry.
one, yes.
The one,
Yes,
okay,
yeah.
thank you, yeah.
Call the question, all in favor? Unanimous, someone will put number 2 on the table.
Sorry,
Oh,
can
sorry.
we please call the original motion as amended?
Sorry, yes, the original motion as amended. All in favor? Unanimous, perfect. Number 2 on the table, please. Councilor Devlin.
I'll move that the schedule of regular committee and commission meeting dates for 2025 be approved.
I will second that one. Any discussion on that? See none, I'll call the question, all in favor? Perfect, and number 3.
I move,
Yeah, Councilor Severs.
sorry, I move that a notice of the 2025 schedule of meeting days be provided to the public in accordance with the community charter.
Seconder, Councilor Devlin. Any comments? Call the question, all in favor? Perfect. We'll move on to communications, the multi-purpose facility advisory committee. Councilor Chair, do you want to speak to this one, or would you like me to?
I'll let you have the floor this time.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, we met, we went in camera right away. We'll see those minutes come back in our in-camera meeting. We talked about the site analysis, about how we have narrowed it down to 4 proposed sites. We talked about the benchmarking costs. We were made aware of the borrowing power of the city and wanting to make something that we will actually be able to afford and get funding for. And then we were going to essentially take those and get budget benchmarking to have what we can afford and what we're wanting to get onto a site location to help better inform that decision. Any questions? Perfect. We'll move on to 13B, the Social Development Committee. So we had an update from Director Watnow about staffing updates. We're looking to replace Mr. Atia's Social Development Committee or Social Development Coordinator position, as well as the Indigenous Liaison. So there's this discussion with the committee about that. We then talked about the emergency weather response plan and the cold weather response, and finding the location. Right now, the emergency shelters run out of the Frontier Motel, and just how that would be activated with an emergency response flow chart brought forward by Miss Wells. Kevin Dorius from Community Futures commented on Welcome Week. We talked about the BC Ready to Fit grant for Oster Street. And we talked about the new living wage, had increased to $25.50 for a 2 adult and 2 child in the same household. We talked about seat terms and getting our biographies updated for the Social Development Committee, and talked about the grant in aid program. Is there any questions? Perfect. We will move on to 13C, So this was a follow-up from the UBCM meeting with the RCMP. We thank them for getting back to us, and we will look into ways that we can better staff our RCMP. Ms. Delasel, are there any questions from the press?
There are no questions from the press, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Looking for a motion to move in camera pursuant to section 90.1A, C, and K of the Community Charter. Councilor Lando, Councilor Devlin, all in favor? Perfect. We will take a 10-minute break and come back in camera.
You just.
Can someone mute the?